Hey everyone, this is Kathy the Vegan Prepper, and this video is all about my experience with quitting caffeine. So let's get right into it. Vegan Prepper. Vegan Prepper. Okay, so first off, this video is definitely not me attempting to should on anyone, like you should do this or shouldn't do that or whatever, like whatever it is you decide to put into your own body, just to sort of offer maybe a different perspective on this issue in particular, and then especially too if you were already pondering quitting caffeine yourself, to hopefully give some helpful information and some more reinforcement for that, so that you know that you aren't completely alone. Because seriously, I feel like coffee might be even more ubiquitous in our society than, say, you know, meat or dairy or whatever. People have so much strong emotion surrounding the issue of coffee and caffeine and all of that, and it can be extremely difficult to quit. But basically this video will be in 3 parts, essentially kind of discussing some of our mentality and our reasoning behind doing that, and then also our experience in quitting, and then also help for the withdrawal symptoms if you too decide to go ahead and quit. So first off, some of the reasoning behind quitting caffeine, because it's like we weren't weird enough already, vegans in the prepping community, and now we quit coffee too. It's like literally have nothing in common with anyone anymore on any level whatsoever. We used to be able to like go out with our friends and like get like a little coffee, right? Or whatever. And now it's like we don't even have that. So it's like, what are we going to quit next? Air? I don't even know. So it's like, you know, it's just crazy. But basically, what is some of the reasoning besides just wanting to ostracize ourselves even more from regular society? And primarily, it's just the fact that caffeine is addictive. It is literally an addictive substance in the body. The body forms an actual literal addiction. Sorry to kind of overuse the word literal, but I am using it in its literal sense. Not figurative, literal. It's an addiction that happens in the body. And then when you quit, you do go through withdrawal, like an actual literal withdrawal. And so every single time I say the word literal, do a shot of espresso. No, don't. That's what we're trying to quit. But anyway, so it's mainly that. It's that addiction in the body, that the fact that your body is forming an addictive response to the substance, that you have an addiction that isn't only emotional, it's physical. And so you take that away and you experience withdrawal symptoms. Commonly it's like migraine headaches and extreme fatigue. But people report even like nauseousness, even vomiting. Some people have, they have real withdrawal symptoms to caffeine. And so Adam and I just sort of got to this point where I don't know what brought it up or what was the original inspiration or impetus to this. It's just sort of in general, if you go back, there's a couple chats we talked about. He quit like a month or 2 before I did. And for him, it just boils down to really not wanting his body to be addicted to something. He doesn't want to feel like there's anything that's in control of him, that he himself does not have control over his own body and his own decisions. And really, when you boil it down, whether it's a more harmful addiction, such as alcohol or drugs or whatever, caffeine is kind of like a low-grade addiction. It's just sort of societally acceptable. There's a huge number of our population that's addicted to caffeine. And it's just accepted, but it is still a real addiction, and it does kind of control your life, right? Like even I had gotten to a point where I wasn't always drinking my coffee because I wanted it so bad. It was because I knew that if I didn't have that cup, I would end up with a headache. And so I was forcing myself to have to get caffeine, or like I'd be out somewhere and I'd realize I'm about to pass my window. If I don't get a coffee right now, I'm gonna have a headache, like if I was out unexpectedly. So I'd pull into a Starbucks or a Dunkin' Donuts or Salad and Go or whatever, and I'd get like an iced coffee just to stave off that headache. And so it ended up also being a financial issue. So yeah, you're like not in control of your own life because you're maintaining this addiction. And so we just didn't want that anymore. That wasn't something that we wanted for ourselves. And like I said, he quit sooner than I did. But there's that. But when you think of even just scenarios moving forward, especially from a prepping mindset, there are preppers who say, and I remember my original was it a YouTube short? Is that what they're called? Talking about it, there were comments where people say, but caffeine increases your alertness. It increases your, whatever, your awareness, or it gives you more energy or whatever. And the thing is, yes, that is true, but not if you're already so addicted to it that what you need is an actual caffeine pill to get yourself that same level of awareness that you would get if you were able to just take it in a body that was not addicted to it. So like, and you think of also future scenarios for preparedness, even if it's not like an SHTF global doomsday type scenario. People think preppers are all about doomsday, and for me personally, it's not. So I'm so much more focused on like the actual probable things in life that come up, you know, whether it's a weather event or, you know, rising food prices or, you know, loss of a job. And so we have plenty to get us by, you know, if that scenario comes up. Just being smart. Prepping used to just be about being smart. And that was just what everybody did. But with the rise of supermarkets and these systems that we've come to trust more than we trust our own ingenuity, people don't do it anymore, and they think that it's foolish or stupid to do that. And for me personally, prepping is not about crazy scenarios. It's about things that might actually happen. Like what if there was a wildfire? What if you do get evacuated from your home and you're still addicted to caffeine? You can have a bug out bag ready to go or whatever, full of food to get yourself through a few days. But are you going to have, you know, waste precious space in something like that when you're looking at the survival of your family over a 3 to 7 day period, like in just like a backpack? Are you really going to be wasting precious space for coffee or some caffeine type thing that like to keep your addiction going? Would you not, even if you do have coffee, eventually you might run out, and then you would be going through withdrawal symptoms in a situation which is so bad to be going through any kind of withdrawal, especially if you're ending up with debilitating headaches, because those caffeine headaches are real, man. They are horrible. Or the debilitating fatigue. The fatigue is unreal. I'll get to that like when I talk about the experience of actually quitting. And do you want to be putting yourself through that in a scenario when you really do need to be at your most alert? You really do need to be at your most energetic to be able to get up in the morning and just be awake already without needing something to like jolt yourself. It's like, for me personally, I started feeling like caffeine and coffee was like the panels, you know, where they like go, and then you just kind of go, okay, I've restarted myself and now I can go back. It's an artificial energy. It's like dragging yourself behind a car or something. Like you're forcing your body to have this feeling of energy without giving it the sustenance or the nourishment that it might need to just produce that naturally. Yeah, for me personally, and when I was saying that, like, do you really want to be in that situation? Again, that's not me, like, that was like my thought process, like the thing that kind of started making me go like, oh my gosh, I have to quit. Like I cannot keep doing this, because yeah. And the more Adam and I would talk about it, the more we would really kind of rehash situations and circumstances. I could not think of even one situation in which having a caffeine addicted body would be of benefit to me. It just wouldn't. I don't think there's a single situation or circumstance. So then beyond the just situational kind of scenarios that we can come up with, beyond the physical addiction, there's also the fact that coffee especially, it's extremely acidic to the body. It can cause digestive issues. Caffeine itself also is an internal stressor to the body. It maintains a fight or flight mode. It puts your body into stress so that you can be, again, in a scenario where everything is going down, there's external stress, and your body is internally stressed at the same time. Like caffeine makes you more stressed out. It makes you have more anxiety because you're already being put into that fight or flight mode. You're in survival mode all of the time. It ends up depleting your adrenals. You end up just fatigued in a way that's like a deep fatigue, where again, it's like that scenario where it's almost like you're getting pulled behind a car. Or the other thing I thought of was like, it's like being a puppeteer, like something's like forcing your little limp body to just like move, you know, when you don't have the energy yourself. And that's what caffeine is doing to your body. It's forcing you to keep moving when your body is exhausted. And so you're again, your adrenals are depleted. You have none of your own natural energy and you're being forced to move. I can't even imagine how unhealthy that is long term. Like it's just so unhealthy. There was a thing I was reading, it was about kind of traditional Chinese medicine. And it was talking like a saying, I think it's a saying, I'm not sure. I'm fully aware that a lot of times we think of things, this is a saying in this culture, and sometimes it's not true. Whether or not it's truly a saying in traditional Chinese medicine or not, I think it's true that with things like caffeine and stimulants, stuff like that, basically it's like you're borrowing tomorrow's energy today. The idea being that you're shortening your life. So you're giving yourself energy for today, but you're taking it from your life, like your future life. And that was kind of like a whoa, because yeah, you talk about the health problems and all of that. So anyway, those are just some of the reasons behind it. But again, primarily it is that addiction. It's just like not wanting to end up in a situation where I'm still addicted and potentially going through a withdrawal in a bad situation where you do not want to be going through a withdrawal. And so, yeah, that's our reasoning behind it. So our experience is quitting. I will go ahead and sort of just highlight a little bit. I don't want to talk too much about this, but we did do it totally differently. So Adam did his gradually over time, where he just sort of gradually decreased the amount of caffeine that he was consuming every day. And then I went cold tofu. It's just like, boom, no more all of a sudden. And some of that decision was because of watching Adam go through his, and also because I know how I am. I definitely feel like I might have a bit of an addictive personality. And it's just like there's definitely brain chemistry. Certain people are after dopamine hits. They have naturally lower dopamine, I think it is, in their brains. This is something that's you know, people can see, that scientists have begun to see in people. And I think I might have that kind of brain. I feel like I'm always searching for stimulation. I've said before too, like I'm more ADD, ADHD. I really do believe that I have that, even though I've never been officially diagnosed. And it's part and parcel for some of the experiences that I've had in my life, for there to be issues like that throughout life. So that's definitely true. But for me personally, every time I've ever tried to quit, I quit gradually. And then you get to a point where you start feeling that fatigue and you're like, well, maybe let me have just a little bit extra today because I'm tired, or let me have it, you know. And for me personally, it was not something I was ever able to do. Now, Adam is a powerhouse of willpower and resolve. Like, that man, I watch him and I cannot believe the quality of man that he is. Like, he's a good man. Anyway, so I'm distracted. He's an incredible man. Just watching him, like, I am so astounded by him, because he just makes decisions and then he just like does the thing that he decided. So he decided he's quitting coffee. But basically what ended up happening to him is he started feeling those extreme fatigue symptoms. And I really believe because he drew it out, his symptoms ended up lasting for like a month. He was dealing with fatigue from quitting caffeine, because that's like kind of how long it took. And it wasn't until it was completely out of his system that for a little while he still was fatigued, and then he finally perked back up again. It was like, yeah, it just got dragged out so long. But as far as I could remember, he didn't really ever deal with any headaches. So that was a nice thing, that he didn't end up dealing with the debilitating migraines or whatever. But he did drag out those fatigue symptoms for like forever. And so that was part of my decision to quit just fast. Just do it quick, pull the ripcord, be done. Again, in keeping also with kind of that like lack of success every other time I've tried going slow. So I just did quick. And for me personally, the only thing that I did different this time than any other time I've ever quit, and I mean, like when I explained earlier that scenario of being out and having to go get a coffee or else I would get a headache, that was serious. Like every single time I would miss even like one cup, I'd end up with a headache. Like that's how bad it was for me. And so when I quit this time, I went cold tofu. I don't like saying cold turkey. I'm vegan. So I went cold tofu. And the only thing different I did was I started drinking an herbal tea. And this time I ended up with maybe one extremely low grade headache, like 2 days in. and it went away really fast. And other than that, and then there was some fatigue, of course, too, but I didn't deal with anything. And I feel like I cleared up so fast. It was all, for me, my caffeine withdrawal was over in like 3 days, and I was all of a sudden waking up like awake. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. This is what life is supposed to be like. And so what I did was, because of my knowledge as a budding kind of amateur herbalist and all the things that I have read, I was using oat straw. And so I did, it was an old nutritive blend that I had. And so it wasn't just pure oat straw. It was probably something like oat straw, nettles, red raspberry leaf, and lemon balm is probably what it was. I don't know for sure, because I just make these random nutritious blends, and then that's like the tea that I drink at home. But there's definitely a lot of oat straw in it. And so oat straw is famous in the herbal community anyway for its ability to help with withdrawal symptoms. Even so Tiriana Lodog, I believe, she's a medical doctor who has also worked in impoverished areas with really low income people, and then they deal sometimes with things like heroin addiction. She has even seen success with helping people get through the withdrawal symptoms of even something as serious as like a heroin addiction, but using oat straw. And so seeing that and realizing, of course, that caffeine is a genuine addiction, I decided to go ahead and make sure that I was drinking a ton of tea that had oat straw in it throughout the day. So I was drinking probably 2, if not 3 quarts of a nutritious tea made of oat straw and various other herbs. And I can't even tell you the difference. Like I said, I ended up with just one like kind of very tiny headache that went away very fast on the second day. Not even one single debilitating migraine. That was really shocking to me. Because like I said, because of my past experience, I would end up with horrible headaches. And so that was the thing that kept me chained to the coffee. And so, yeah, it was great. So I would very heartily recommend getting some oat straw, or finding a blend that has a good portion of that blend being oat straw, making yourself a medicinal strength tea of that and drinking it while you are dealing with the withdrawal symptoms. And so obviously that's not like me trying to treat something. It's just letting you know that traditionally this has been used. It's been observed to seem to have an effect, a positive effect for withdrawal symptoms. And so definitely it's just oat straw. And this is what it looks like. It's just straw. This is basically like the leftover grass of harvesting oats is what it is. And so it does tend to have it's like little traces of gluten it can have in it. So if you're truly celiac disease, it might not be okay. You'd have to do some research. But even most people who have, according to Robin Rose Bennett, who's an herbalist of great renown, even people who have issues with gluten, if it's not like full-on celiac disease, can tolerate this well, because it's like almost nothing. Do you know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, be very careful if you have a genuine gluten allergy, and just sort of look into it. But that's kind of my tip for helping get through the withdrawal, because that seemed to help me. And my withdrawal ended up being very low key compared to what it has been in the past. And again, even not very much fatigue, but I still did end up with a lot of fatigue. The fatigue is a strange thing to describe too, because you just sort of like, the only way that I could describe it was you just feel like you're underwater. You're just like, like every movement is like there's resistance, and you're just like, because you're so tired and there's no fixing it. But over time, it went away pretty quickly. And I wonder if partly nettles was part of why it seemed to be so helpful to me, this tea blend, because nettles is also a famous herbal remedy for replenishing depleted adrenals, and kind of replenishing the nourishment of your body. It's a classic remedy for extreme fatigue, like the deep fatigue that is depleted adrenal fatigue, because it's so nourishing, and nettles is just wonderful for stuff like that. So I was taking that at the same time as well. So who knows, but that is what it was. And definitely get yourself some lemon balm or some oat straw to help with the withdrawals if you're planning on doing that, and it hopefully would make it easier for you When I say a medicinal strength, for me personally, what that is you take whatever blend you're using, and it's 1 tablespoon per cup of water. So 1 tablespoon of your herbal tea blend per cup of water, brewed for at least 45 minutes, and then you can strain it and sip on it. And yeah, I did that like 3 times a day. I also typically, if I'm doing a quart-sized jar, I do like 3.5 tablespoons, because you won't end up with a full 4 cups. It'll be like 3.5 cups usually is what you end up with. I will do like a little over a teaspoon of stevia leaf. So not like a stevia drop or a stevia packet, the actual plant itself. Mixed in with the herbs, let it brew, and then you get a sweet tea without having to add any sugar, and it's delicious. And that's kind of the ratio that I tend to use. But then briefly, this is already long enough, I will talk a little bit about these last couple of months and what we have been through. We've dealt with a lot. It was amazing that the timing of quitting, it was so funny. I was just driving my daughter home from her dance class, and then all of a sudden I was hit with the knowledge, just out of the blue, I have to quit today. Today is when I quit. And I did. That's when I quit. And I just believe that, like, because you guys know that I am a Christian, I have a relationship with God, and I feel like God was saying, this is when you need to quit. And it was so overwhelming to me that I was like, oh, okay, cool. That's what we're doing. I'm doing it now. There's times in my life where I felt those compulsions, and it's like, okay, that didn't come from me. It's time to do it now. And it's amazing. I went through that. It was such a short withdrawal, and then I started feeling a lot better. And then it was like suddenly dominoes began to fall in my life. And for me personally, I'm so grateful for the timing of quitting. Like I said, there's no scenario where you are benefited by having a caffeine addicted body. And so it is true that caffeine can increase your energy. You can give yourself a little bit of a stimulant without it necessarily having to be a harmful thing that you do all of the time. I think it's the perpetuation of it, the constancy of it, that would end up being harmful over time. So for me personally, quitting and then dealing with all kinds of issues, there were health issues in all 3 of my children, stuff that was keeping me up at night, literally, not because I was like upset, just because it's like it was physically, I was up at night, dealing with health issues in all of my children. We seem like we are turning the corner now, like things I think are kind of slowing down, and it's getting figured out. But I can't tell you what a blessing it has been over this last month or 2, dealing with all of that, literally again being up at night, there I go saying literally again, being up at night, and being exhausted for a genuine reason, because I wasn't having sleep. So I think over the course of this last month and a half, 2 months or so, it was like 3 or 4 times I was like, oh my gosh, I need something to help me get through my day. And so I turned to matcha instead of coffee, because matcha in and of itself, it's got something in it, and I wish I could remember the name. I'll put it on the screen right here. It's a thing that's also a relaxant. It's a combination of a stimulant and a relaxant at the same time. So it'll stimulate you and give you that energy, but it doesn't give you like jitters and anxiety. It relaxes you at the same time. It's a much safer and gentler way of giving yourself that boost without, like, compared to coffee. So I turned to matcha instead. And boy, what a difference. It is true how different the feeling of matcha versus coffee is, like the way that it just perks you up. And the thing is, it's a lot less caffeine than coffee. But because I was no longer addicted to caffeine, I was able to receive the good of that beverage and get through my day and be able to kind of do the things that I needed to do. And like I said, it was just a few times that I felt like I really needed it. And then I did it and it helped me. And that was the thing I think that has solidified it more than anything for me, why it is such a blessing and so good to not be addicted to it anymore. Because then if situations come up again, like with your kids or with whatever, and not even like a crazy like evacuation scenario, this is just like real life that happened, to be able to actually utilize something like that to help yourself, rather than being so inundated all the time with it that you don't get any help from it at all anymore. I think it's just great. So like I said, I'm solidified now. I'm not, so for me personally, like I haven't become a caffeine vegan, you know, like I'm vegan, like no meat, no dairy, no eggs, no whatever, like no exceptions. There's no like every now and then I might have a craving, so I get it. No, 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 no. That's a whole different thing. It's a whole different thing. Like mentally. But like caffeine, I have quit using it constantly, but I will still occasionally utilize it. And for me personally, mostly probably in the form of matcha is the way that I will use it going forward, just as something to perk me up. Now, also though, this way, if you do want to prep for some scenario, and caffeine pills are something that would be, you know, beneficial in certain scenarios, like if you have to force yourself to stay awake, for, you know, whatever security purposes, if it's not safe to fall asleep or whatever, again, then you could utilize that in a body that it isn't addicted to caffeine, so that it gives you more of a boost than you normally would get if you were still addicted to caffeine. So for me personally, like I said, I just feel like Adam and I, we're just so strong on this that it's just, it feels to us foolish and short-sighted to force yourself to maintain an addiction. And the way that I feel now compared to the way that I felt on coffee all of the time, it's just night and day. And I feel like I mentioned, that coffee keeps you in that eternal, or in that perpetual, eternal, it's eternally bad for you. No, in that perpetual state, excuse me. It keeps you in that perpetual fight or flight state, and increases your anxiety and your stress. The feeling that I've also had over these last couple of months dealing with all of the stuff that I've been dealing with, it's different. Like, I mean, you might get overwhelmed because something is somewhat overwhelming, but like the peace that I've had and the sort of just like being able to just deal with things as they come up without it being like a big issue or a big thing internally, like mentally, I feel like I have noticed a big difference, that you're not just dealing with, because when an external stressor comes, if you're constantly in that fight or flight mode, you're not only dealing with external stress, you're dealing with internal stress, because you're already there even before the thing happens. Then the thing happens and then it's even worse, right? So I don't know. I just feel like it's been nothing but beneficial. So that's our experience quitting coffee and quitting caffeine. Again, just making ourselves even weirder than we were before. But I don't know if any of that was helpful to you. If you have any questions or comments, let us know down below. We would love to answer your questions, especially if you have any questions for Adam too, even though he's not in this video. If you'd like to ask him about his experience, he can answer some of those questions too. He should probably make his own video. It will be shorter, because that's just how we roll. But yeah, hopefully that was helpful to you. And yeah, let us know what you think. Have you already quit caffeine? Have you had a similar experience when you've quit caffeine? Do you feel better too? Do you notice any negatives, or is it only positives? For me, I feel like it's only positive. But yeah, I guess that's it. For real, I'm gonna cut this off. I still don't know how to end these. It's awkward for me. Okay. As always, I hope the rest of your day is good and your life stays wonderful. I don't even need caffeine. What did I ever think I needed caffeine to make myself weirder? I don't I don't even need it. Like, this is just me. This is who I am. I don't, whoever thought that I needed stimulants? My gosh. Okay. I have greens. Greens are my stimulant now. Okay. I'm seriously going. Bye.